Hello and welcome to this web assessment tool. This web assessment tool is where you can determine your own organization's capability to perform and deliver. It looks into the different aspects of the strategic capability, your operational capability and your cultural capability. You will look at it as looking at it from an infrastructure perspective. So how well are your infrastructures capable of delivering and performing in these three matters? So it will start with an introduction of what the infrastructure is and what the assessment is and what capability is. We will look into the different areas of questions that you will answer. And then finally you will get to the questions where you will go through all the different dimensions of capability in your organizations, and you will judge by yourself where you believe that your organization is and how good you think you need to be able to handle what is strategically important in your company. So let's start by looking at what do we mean? What is this infrastructure assessment? Well, it's a health check. It's a health check to determine your present and your needed strategic, operational and cultural capability. It is always done against a backdrop of a core question or a strategic challenge. So it will also help you to assess what is needed to meet those challenges. It will come a section a little later in this test where you think of what those strategic challenges are. The outcome will be a view of what capability that you see that you have today and what you see is needed to be able to take on your strategic challenge, your core question. And it looks something like this, where the red line shows you the capability you have today and the green line shows you the capability that you need. So by this you will see where you're strong, where you have your weaker points, and maybe also where you have like imbalances within this system. So what is an infrastructure really, and what is its capability? What do we mean by capability of an infrastructure? Well, you can compare an infrastructure in a company with an infrastructure that we are more used to in society. So if you look at this picture on the left side, this is an example of an infrastructure. In every city and in your own city or your own village where you live, you have an infrastructure of roads like this. And they are there to enable people to move and to take themselves from one place to another place because they need to. And it's there to take different people to different places and different needs, and also different need of speed or accuracy or exercise or whatever. So there you see that the road here is built to handle bikers and pedestrians and cars and also public transportation systems. And if you look at this, it is quite similar to how you can look at it from a company perspective. So in a company you also need to have infrastructures where ideas and problems and thinking together and communication can be moved and can be handled. And that is what makes strategies happen. It what makes operations happen. It is those infrastructure and their capability. And if you look at it, there are objective aspects of an infrastructure, things you can see. There are roads and bridges and signs and traffic lights. They're all there to make these movements move better. There are vehicles to help you, different kind of vehicles, and the infrastructure also needs to handle that, but the infrastructure itself consists of these vehicles. Everything from cars to bikes to trams to actually you can also like shoes. To make an infrastructure function you also need laws and regulations. so that in this case people know how to handle themselves and how to move and how to interact with others. There are also subjective aspects of an infrastructure, invisible things. What you cannot see in this picture is how these people are trained to use this. But you know that to make an infrastructure like this function in a highly efficient way, people need to be trained on how to be. So in our case, you give out driver's license, and to be able to get a driver's license, you need to learn theory, but you also need to practice. You need to understand the rules for what you can and cannot do. You need to be clear of where you want to go. You can imagine what this picture would look like if most people had no idea where they wanted to go and how to go there, following the traffic signs and so on. It will be a very different situation. And they need to understand also the behavior of the other road users, and be able to communicate with other road users. And by all of these aspects, this infrastructure becomes efficient and by that capable of moving people. And this can very easily be compared to a company's infrastructure, where you also need this kind of capability, and you need the training, you need a driver's license so that people can act, make decisions, take initiatives, be creative. People also need there to be clear of where they want to go, and they need to understand the behaviors of others and be able to communicate with others. So it is comparable. Therefore, we are using the infrastructure as a basis for looking at a company. So a definition of an infrastructure, well, it is that underlying foundation or the basic framework of a system or an organization. And the definition is basic and usually permanent framework which supports a superstructure and is supported by a substructure. So it is there, like the roads and the road signs and the traffic lights, but it supports the superstructure, which means a city and a society and human beings and so on. It is relatively permanent and a foundational capital investment of a country, but also something that, if you compare to a company, it's also something that is really a big capital investment in a company when it comes to making things work together. The company invests in people and in offices and in IT systems and in training and leadership and organizational structures and so on, to make possible all its activity, all its economic activity. So imagine this. It's like the road system of a company that are to handle the economic activities inside that. So what do we mean then by capability? Well, if you look at the roads, if the roads are empty, they are capable of doing things, but they are not doing anything. So it's more of how strong is it, and if people are trained to use the road system, they are more capable. So what do we mean by capability? Well, again, the general definition, it's a measure of the ability of an entity, of a department, organization, a system, a person, to achieve its objectives, especially in relation to its overall mission. So if we think of that, it's like, how big are the horsepowers of this system to handle the objectives that it needs to handle. This analysis or this assessment will help you see clearly how you can, first of all, where you are today, how capable are you today to handle your strategic issues, your operational issues, your cultural issues, but also how you need to increase it, where do you need to be and how do you increase it, where do you work. And you can compare it to a muscle system. So if you if you think of a body, and a body with all its muscles, those muscles give the body and a human being capability. So you know that the better exercised your muscles are, the higher your capability is. So it's also comparable, because an infrastructure, if you think of a road, it is very fixed and permanent. You put it there and then you just use it and use it and use it, and by that eventually you wear it down and then you need to renovate it or restore it. But when you look at strategic or let's say a company infrastructure, it's better to compare it to like muscle system. Because the difference here is that just as the muscles in your body, you must use it and exercise it. The more you use it, the better they are. If you stop using it, you lose them. And that is not the same when you look at roads. So, and you know that the more you use also your way of working in your company, the more you are in meetings and exercise in meetings, the better you become. The muscle system makes it possible to stand up and move around and carry the load. So this is how you can compare this to capability. This makes things happen. They give you the power, but also the resilience and vitality to deal with all sorts of changing needs. You know that the stronger you and healthier you are, you're also resilient and resistant to whatever changes, health issues and so on. So the better you take care of the system, the more capable the system is. A very important note here is that just as the body and the muscles, they must be very well coordinated and very well integrated. You know that it doesn't help you to over-exercise and become very strong in one muscle if another muscle is weak. Then you also will have pain in your body and you will lose power and resilience. So this is the same when you look at a company. So therefore you will see in the assessment that you will do is that it also looks at how well coordinated and how well integrated are your things. Could it be that you are very strong on one part or one dimension, but you are weak in another dimension, and therefore you will not get the power out of it because it's not integrated. It's another muscle that needs to be trained. So that is also an aspect of this. So this is how to frame what we mean by the assessment, what we mean by looking at it from like a comparison to an infrastructure and the capability of an infrastructure.